By way of introduction, please allow me to introduce to you His Excellency the Governor, Mr. Andrew Murdoch, in the center of the table to your front. To his right is the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Michael Weeks. To the Governor's left is Mr. Darin, the Commissioner of Police. So here's a brief outline for tonight. His Excellency will give some remarks, followed by remarks by the Minister, followed by a presentation by the Commissioner of Police. And thereafter, we'll have an open discussion where we will hear your comments, your questions, and your solutions. Just a few points to note. The restrooms are immediately behind you. The event tonight is being live streamed. Comments can be made via the Governor of Bermuda Facebook page for those of you listening virtually. Tonight's proceedings are being recorded by CITV. And if you speak tonight but do not wish to be on that recording, please see me privately afterwards. I shall ensure that you are omitted from that recording. To the point of solutions, everybody has a version of what the problem is and why we have the problem. But tonight's focus is on solutions. So, for you to express yourselves, we have a mic on either side of the room. If you wish to speak, please line up behind the mic and I shall alternate between each side of the room. If you're unable to stand, we'll make sure you get, someone will pass their mic to you in order for you to express yourselves. When speaking, I know this is obvious, but I'll state it anyhow. Please be respectful. You're all adults, and we want to demonstrate that which we want our children to replicate. Be respectful. We are all here for the benefit of our country. Your comments and questions should be succinct. I'm going to limit you to 3 minutes at the most. And I shall be timing you, and I reserve the right to invite you to end your comments if you're going on for too long. We are aiming to be out of here no later than 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. Some of you have to be out of St. George's by 8 p.m. We're aiming to finish here by 8 o'clock. And one final housekeeping point, if you could put your phones on silent or vibrate, that would be greatly appreciated. Having said those remarks, I invite His Excellency the Governor to the podium to share his remarks. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So, a warm welcome to what is actually the second town hall meeting on gun and gang violence. And I'm really pleased to be here in St. George's for this second one. I'm often asked, certainly from the last one and before it, why I'm here as the first question. And I think it's important to remember maybe why all 3 of us are sat in front of you. So there are different responsibilities for security and policing in Bermuda under the Constitution. And the Governor has responsibility for the police and internal security. And of course, the Governor, as you know, doesn't do that on their own. That is a partnership with the Government of Bermuda and through the Minister of National Security and his cabinet colleagues and the Premier. And of course, the operational policing, the actual tactics on the ground, is for the Commissioner and his team doing independent operational decisions on policing. But between the 3 of us, the Governor and the Government and the Commissioner and his team and officers, we're all responsible for security in Bermuda, and in my view that makes us all accountable for security in Bermuda. And as part of this, as I'll go on to describe, what I'm keen, as you've heard from the PS, is as part of that accountability is to put ourselves in front of you to answer any questions that you might have of us, as well as to provide answers, solutions or thoughts and reflections that you might have to this important problem. Now, over the last few months, we've held a number of what they call Governors' Councils meetings, which is a meeting that's kind of provided for and under the Constitution, where the Governor can meet with the Premier and invited other ministers as part of the Council, and we're joined by others, and we were joined by the Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Collector of Customs and the Director of Public Prosecution, as well as other ministers, to look at this problem. And it wasn't just a talking shop, I can assure you of that. It was the meetings, and we have our third one this week on the same topic, was looking at the issues and looking at what measures that we could collectively take to address parts of those problems. Some of the things that you'll hear about from the Commissioner and the Minister tonight include things about resourcing, that includes people, police, equipment, surveillance, CCTV, other types of measures to better investigate, detect, deter crime. Importantly, I think, measures to look at ways of protecting witnesses so they feel safe in giving evidence of things about that they know of. It's a real problem. You will hear probably about the number of cold cases, 47, I think, Commissioner, is that right? He's going to nod, great, of cold case murders. And then some of those, I know that there are witnesses out there who are able to contribute potentially to finding justice in those cases, but don't feel safe to do so. And there are potentially ways of giving them better protection under the law to do exactly that. There are other things that can be done in terms of not just tackling and updating laws on prosecutions, investigations, and there are a number, but also looking at who's involved in organised crime, not just those on the front line, but those who are behind the scenes, often making a great deal of money out of others, inciting these incidents, organising, but never getting their hands dirty, but often profiteering from it. And there are ways to target the money. So these are all things that are being looked at and considered, and obviously is legislation to be considered and taken up by government. So what's the takeaways from all this that I've, in my very relatively short time, you've all been here a lot longer than I have. You're not going to police your way out of this problem. The police are definitely part of the response, but you'll hear they are a reactive response to a degree. So in terms of addressing the symptoms of any crime, it's about a much more holistic way of looking at the problem, and that's education, societal inequities, looking at other things in terms of assisting parents, assisting in the fabric of society, that's housing or others, and to give people who might be tempted to engage in this activity alternatives and encourage them and provide those alternatives for them. So while you might have the kind of harder edge up the system, Minister of National Security, Commissioner of Police, absolutely the solution doesn't just rest with the responsibility in terms of that end in the criminal justice system. I think a lot of the solutions have got to be found before they get anywhere near the criminal justice system. And I think those are often found throughout the communities. So you've heard from the PS tonight on what I'd like to gather for tonight. Yes, ask us questions, hold us accountable for any things and while we're up here in front of you. But also if you have thoughts, ideas, do put them forward, because we're very much in the market for those. There is no monopoly on good ideas in government or government house. And I'm sure amongst you, you've got some fantastic ideas, things that might have worked in the past that might be resurrected, and we heard a little bit about that in the first town hall, or new ideas and initiatives that can be done and explored and followed up afterwards. So I very much look forward to the town hall. Again, thank you for inviting me to St George's, and I'll hand over to the Minister. Thank you.
Let me start off by recognizing all the organizers. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate the turnout tonight. The governor gave an overview. I, as the minister, will be a little more specific and let you know what the government has been doing to combat the scourge of gang violence and gun crime. So we're gathered here to share a common goal, and our common goal is to make Bermuda safer. Gun violence, knife violence, gang activity, these have taken too much of our sons, our brothers, our nephews, our godsons, our neighbors. So this meeting is not just about identifying the problems. I think we all know what the problem is all too well. It's about coming together, government, law enforcement, and community to find and act on solutions that last. So as Minister of National Security, I want to say this clearly. This is not just a policing issue, it's a community issue. I had heard over my tenure as Minister of National Security, where is the governor in all of this? So what we've done, we reached out to the governor, and lo and behold, he was more than willing to come and talk to our residents whenever we demanded. And that's why we're here, to have this joint town hall meeting. We got myself as the minister, the Commissioner of Police, and His Excellency the Governor. We have all witnessed the pain that violence brings. We have seen lives cut short, families shattered. Most of those that are involved in this violent crime are under 30. So every shooting, every stabbing, every act of retaliation leaves a deep scar, not just on families, but on the entire community. So we cannot allow ourselves to become numb to these tragedies. Not long ago, I spoke to a mother who lost her son to gun violence, and I'm telling you this story because these deaths, this violence are more about numbers, about people. She said, Mr. Weeks, my son was only 18 years old. He wasn't perfect, but he was my son. And she said, what really hurts us is in her home, the empty church dinner table, a constant reminder of what she's lost. So her story reminds us that every statistic represents a real person, a grieving family, and a future that will never be realized. That is why we cannot and will not accept this as a norm in Bermuda. So our government is taking deliberate steps to strengthen our law enforcement response to violent crime. Just recently, the government signed a memorandum of understanding with the United Kingdom to support the enhancement of Bermuda's law enforcement capabilities. This partnership provides targeted funding assistance to strengthen areas like intelligence gathering, crime prevention, technique improvements, and training. This means that our Bermuda Police Service will have improved access to tools and expertise to help disrupt organizers of criminal activity, especially involving firearms and gangs. In October was our second or third cohort commissioner of recruits graduating, so we are doing a ramped up effort in trying to increase the numbers of police officers in our ranks. The challenge is that we're looking for locals first, spouses of Bermudians, and then we look for resident non-Bermudians, and if we still can't fill the ranks, we have to look overseas. The reality of our situation is that we have to look overseas if we cannot fill our ranks to do the tasks that are needed. We're also engaged in the ongoing discussion about the possible ban on tinted visors. I have to stress that this is not about targeting our law-abiding citizens. It's about making sure those who use tinted visors to hide their identities during crimes cannot do so easily. So we are trying to carefully balance individuals' privacy with public safety. So some law-abiding citizens may be disruptive when it comes to decisions that are going to be made shortly on how we address tinted visors. Law enforcement is essential, but prevention is where we win the long game. We must reach our young people before the gangs do. A young man told me when I was out canvassing that he never wanted to be in this life. But when you go out with nothing to do and no money in your pocket, it feels like your only choice. But what changed for him was when a community mentor helped him to get a job in construction. He said, for the first time, I felt proud to bring home money the right way. So today he's working, earning, and mentoring others. That's the power of opportunity, people. And it's why we must give our young people options beyond the streets. So having said that, we're working with the Ministry of Education and community partners to expand after-school programs, sports, arts, mentorships. And our schools also incorporate life skills and conflict resolution, teaching young people early how to resolve disputes without violence. So we are focused on creating more pathways into trades, apprenticeships, and entrepreneurships. And some of us may challenge this next point, but we must also believe in second chances. Punishment alone is not going to solve this crisis. We must help people change. And some youngsters may have done something to you or one of your family members, and the first instinct is to act with them forever. But if we are going to move on and grow and get strong as a country, as a community, we have to believe in second chances. So what is the role of our community? No government, no police service, no governor can do this alone. We have to have a collective approach. In one community, residents grew tired of the violence, so they organized. Parents checked on each other's children, churches opened their doors for after-school programs, and residents built a partnership with local police. Within months, crime stopped because the community decided, not on our street, not in our neighborhood. So what can we all do? Parents and guardians, know where your children are, who they are with, and what they are doing. So we must step in early. Churches and faith groups, keep providing safe spaces, mentorships, and moral guidance. Community and sporting clubs, use your influence to reach young people. Teach discipline, teamwork, and resilience. Neighbors, watch out for each other. Report suspicious activity, even anonymously. So everyone, we must speak up, because silence allows violence to grow. So when we come together, we make it harder for crime to hide and easier for hope to thrive. So with those words, I will hand it over to the Commissioner of Police and look forward to any questions and or comments. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight, I'm just going to share with you a little bit of context. Bear in mind when we started the town halls, well, before when we had our first one, there was a lot of concern about what was happening because of the recent incidents, on Port Street, Legends Bar. So that was a bit of the driver. So I just really wanted to start with what was the operational response in light of those incidents. Now, Okay, so immediately after, when I say immediately, just shortly after the Legends Bar incident, basically what happened is we collapsed a couple of units and we, well, I'll say spun up something that we call Operational Sentinel. So that group of individuals, and it's a little over 20 people, their day-to-day function is really about targeting gang members, patrolling areas where we know gang members transit back and forth, areas where we know they hang out, areas where we know there are seats or sources of tension. And of course the tension ebbs and flows, starts between, or it is between one group and another group, and then as things happen, those seats of tension can arise. Those seats of tension can change. So Operational Sentinel is led by an Assistant Commissioner of Crime. We are focused on using all the kind of legal avenues that we have to target gang nominals. This group came together from units across the organization. So we've had to stop doing some things to focus on what is clearly a very significant issue for Bermuda and the Bermuda Police Service. So there's daily tasking reviews about the intelligence and information that that's coming into the organization, and because we have 2 teams of 10, we're able to respond fairly quickly to intelligence and tensions as and when they arrive. You would have, I hope you would have seen, maybe not in God's country in the eastern area, you would have seen, but in central and west, you would have definitely seen an increase in police patrols. Sort of, we're stepping up vehicle checkpoints where we're doing what we call, what's commonly known in the community as a 315F or stop and search type of activity. And we're focusing on those areas, you know, where, again, we say gang nominals, you know, gang members, gang nominals, gang connected individuals are. Since we've started, and it's a little bit dated, so these numbers are actually higher, but since about, this is going to take us to September the 16th, there's been 108 arrests of individuals that are, where we're talking about being focused on gang nominals. And we've executed a number of search warrants, and that has seen the seizure of 4 firearms. Most of those we have reported out in the community or the media. There's been substantial seizures of cash and drugs and drug equipment. We have really made an effort to increase our ticketing, and a lot of people don't always make the connection between roads policing enforcement and gang activity, but for us, it's about denying criminals the use of the roads. So if you have warrants that we can execute, that gives an opportunity for us to get a little bit of control of individuals. If you lose your driver's license, it makes it a little bit harder for you to get around. So targeting gang members through roads policing enforcement is a significant aspect of policing activity as it relates to targeting gang members. You would have seen those in the North Hamilton area would have seen a regular patrol of North Hamilton. So we will have about 2 people for a number of hours of the day going up, walking around, visiting with shop holders, engaging with the individuals, and providing a visible policing presence in and around the North Hamilton area in particular. There has been a significant amount of arrests for bladed articles. And one of the statistical pieces that I'm going to get to is just the increase in the amount of bladed articles as a result, well, not as a result, but an increased amount of bladed articles that we've seen, and it's a bit of a worrisome, troubling trend. Back then, there was a lot of concern, particularly around the murder of Janae minors, and where the police were, so you would have known by now, it was been in the news that we have made arrests in connection with that tragic incident. And I take this opportunity to really ask the community, to share information. The reality is it's a smaller group of people that have information that's directly relevant to those incidents. But even as we sort of expand out to people that might have, information about incidents, there are people on those days in those locations that have just seen things that are unusual. And you'd be surprised sometimes that seemingly innocuous event, I saw this vehicle, it seemed unusual, I saw this bike, I saw this car in a particular area, that can sometimes be the little thread that we need to pull on to help us unravel to solve some of these crimes. And I am trying to just sort of canter through a number of facts. Last time there was some commentary that we could have had more time for some discussion, and I think today really is about some solutions, so I wanted to make sure I do my part to leave some time for that. The Minister mentioned signing an MOU with the UK government for some financial assistance, and that funding is largely going to help us pay for about 6 months to bring in 4 serious crime investigators, 3 crime analysts, and 2 financial crime investigators. We're also looking at increasing our ability to run what we call sort of just covert operations. Obviously, I can't go into detail what that's all about, clues in the title, but just some assistance in terms of developing our capability around that area. And also a little not progressing as fast as I would like, but we're also exploring with some of our overseas agencies and just some temporary relief in terms of numbers, but I don't think we're going to see that certainly within this side of the, in 2025. Also topical has been CCTV, so I just wanted to give a little bit of an update, where we are in terms of CCTV. People often ask, what role does CCTV play in the investigation of crime, and where are we in terms of the project? So phase 1 of the project is ostensibly complete, so we have 136 sites. In the next phase, there are some sites to be installed. We have what I say views because sometimes one location has multiple cameras, to provide a 360 view. So right now we have 460 individual views in the island, spread across the island. And when we're totally complete, we're going to have about 560. Internally, this number is a little bit dated. I had 384, but we're actually up to over or around 500 requests. Largely, the overwhelming 99.9% of that is internal in the organization. When crimes happen, we make requests into the department, into the CCTV department, team if you'd like, team of 1. To process requests. So an accident happened, a crime has happened, and so we've got about 500 of those requests. At the time when I completed this information, about 340 out of 384 had been processed. So we processed them in a reasonable time period. The important takeaway here is that CCTV and the investment in CCTV is particularly helpful. And again, topical at that point in time, when we had the murder of Ms. Miners, whether CCTV was working or not right at that site had not come online, but I wanted to reassure people that there are many other sites that were in operation, and connected with that incident, we have over 20 minutes of CCTV footage that's going to play a significant role when that matter comes to trial. LPR, license plate recognition, so there are 12 of them are active. We're going to have 19 in total that we've put in place, and we have a plan which will be by probably the end of summer in 2026 to roll out about, I think it's about 30 speed enforcement sites. So that's going to have an impact, I think, on reducing some of the bad driving behavior that we see in the community. All right, so where are we in terms of crime? I know it's not necessarily topical in terms of what people think, but if you look at just the top line, right, is the all crime index, or the all crime numbers, and you can see that on the top part, we're starting at 2000, and these statistics were good up to 2024. So just trying to provide round years, you can actually see we're at some of the lowest crime in terms of overall crime, that Bermuda has seen. The second line down is what we call acquisitive crime, or crimes against property, and that's been where we really have experienced the significant decline in overall crime numbers. Now, clearly within the community, the thing that causes concern amongst individuals is the violent crime, right? And when you look at the last two lines, you can see the color is a green and a brown. That is what we call crimes against the community and crimes against the person. Now, just think crimes against the person are the assaults, and you can see that line has been relatively flat over the last 25 years. So the numbers of incidents that we've experienced has stayed relatively flat over the years. But obviously, we would all in this room talk about the nature and quality of those crimes. Some people would talk about the amount of harm that arises from each of those crimes, or the nature of that crime, and we would all probably sit here and say things have gotten worse. But in overall numbers, that's what the picture is. All right, so this is a very busy chart, and don't try and unpick, because the points that I'm going to make are going to leap off the page. So the top blue line is 2010, when we had the highest amount, and the blue line is what we call confirmed firearms incidents. So that's incidents in the community where we know there was a gunshot. So in other words, somebody was actually injured, died, or we've gone to that scene and we've recovered, let's say, shell casings. So we absolutely know beyond of a shadow of a doubt that there was a confirmed firearms incident. So you can see in 2010, we hit as high as, that's about 54, 55 incidents in 2010, and you can see the line sort of going down with brief spikes, which is going to go up and down according to the tension that might exist. Tensions ebb and flow. People are arrested, sadly people are deceased, and people leave the jurisdiction, and that can contribute and does contribute to some of the changes that we see in criminality. The big one that I really want you to notice, again, the points I want to make are going to leap off the page, is the green line. So you can see that green line is, it's shooting up, and that green line represents the number of bladed weapon injuries. So this is the amount of injuries that the police have come to the attention of the police as a result of somebody being stabbed. And you can see it's a worrying trend, and it's a sharp rise. Hence, we are making some changes to our prohibited weapons list. In a little while, you'll also hear, as the night progresses, you'll hear about a weapons amnesty that we're going to be running to give the community an opportunity to hand in some of those items which are now going to become prohibited, which quite frankly, I suspect that very few, if any of you, would even have. But we're just going to provide an opportunity for the community to hand those things in. But it is a worrying trend that more individuals have resorted to the use of bladed articles to essentially solve conflicts, right? There's things happening in the community that create conflict, that create tension, and more people are turning to using knives in the resolution of that. And for me, one of the things that does cause a little bit of concern is the age. We're seeing very young people involved. We're seeing women be involved in using knives, and we're also seeing older people beyond that sort of 18 to 30 range, in small numbers, but it is a worrying trend. So just some context, I think, about where operational context and where we are, and it's particularly the numbers. If I had $1 for every time somebody said we don't see the police, I'd be a very rich individual. And the reality is, there's much less of us, a lot less of us, than there was, certainly when I was coming on. And I make the point, so right now we have 376 people in the organization. When I first gave this presentation, there were 15 in training school. They've now come out, so they are boots on the ground helping, but the number still remains 376 officers. And when I joined this organization back in 1993, there were 480 people in the organization. Violence was nowhere near, violent crime was nowhere near what we see it today in terms of the nature of that violent crime. Complexity in terms of things like financial crime, cyber crime today, those things, they didn't exist. The demands on the organization that we have today are nowhere near what existed back then. And there's, call it 100 less people in the organization to respond to more complex crime, even though the numbers of crimes have dropped. Between 2021 year to date, we've had 69 firearms incidents that have resulted in 20 fatalities and 35 injuries, 106 stabbings. They have resulted in 110 fatalities and 107 injuries. Multiple people can be injured in a single incident. We've had 53 road traffic fatalities, and another question that I often get is how many guns are there in Bermuda? So we know through forensic analysis of, or ballistics if you like is the word that we use, we know that there are 88 unique firearms that have been seen since 2014. 31 of those 88 have been used repeatedly, so they've been used more than once. 42 of those have been recovered, and 48 of them remain in circulation. We also know that it's a small number of firearms that tends to be repeated, and I've shared with the community that in the Court Street incident, we know that that firearm that was used has been used at least 13 other times over a period of years. So what about just sort of gangs in Bermuda? So there are 11 active gangs. We reckon there's about 200. So we do we will say a gang leader, a gang member, and a gang associate, but definitely in the member and leader category, there's around 200 people that are in that kind of category. What is unique and what is unique to Bermuda about our picture is that nearly all the firearms are perpetrated by locals that are gang-connected individuals. And I highlight that point because in many of the other Caribbean nations that are going through some of the exact same challenges that they have the issue of people migrating from island to island, and they have groups of others that are significantly contributing to that violence. In Bermuda, that, whilst it's sad on one hand, it does create an opportunity for us when we're looking at what we could do in the future to address the issue, because it's our own, right? They have ties to the community. They have cultural foundations and roots. So it's a unique, or not necessarily unique, but it's a particular aspect of the Bermuda situation that provides an opportunity in terms of how we might wish to address it. Some of the key drivers, so people ask me, why do people get involved in gangs? What is the drivers around some of the violent incidents that we have? And we refer to it as the 3 R's. So it's respect, revenge, and revenue. Now, respect for a long time has probably been the primary thing. So going back in the early or mid 2000s, we had a lot of chain snatching, right? And that was a respect issue. If you come up to me and you snatch my chain, obviously I've lost the chain, but it's a respect. When you're rivals, it really is a respect kind of issue. And then we get into kind of like a tit for tat kind of incidents where you have shot one of my friends, gang members, and now I'm going to get back, and that cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. And the last piece that we're seeing more of is where it is revenue generated. So either we're talking about stealing drugs, money from other gang members, or just in relation to some of that trafficking kinds of stuff not going the way those individuals thought it should, and firearms incidents stemming from that, but largely revenue kind of based. So drug trafficking and acquisitive crime are the means in which many of these individuals have to sustain themselves, because many of them are not involved in sort of productive or lawful, gainful employment. Many of them, because they are gang involved, have to be very careful about where it is they move around. They do not have the ability to simply move around. So if they were, if jobs were available, let's say there was somebody from town, and a job was available up west, or they were at a job that had to move around, they just simply can't do that because they will be outside of their territory, and that is just going to create a problem or create risk for them and those that are around them. So, when we begin to think of or look at some of the changes or some of the things that we could potentially address, gainful employment, education, those are two key elements that we definitely need to focus on. One of the challenges is that, once somebody in our very small community creates both risk and opportunity. Opportunity in the fact that we are a small community, so the bonds that can exist in our small community that don't exist in largers, we can capitalize on. The risk that it creates is that we are so small that there's nowhere for people to, or very few places, I don't think it's an absolute zero, but there are very few places where gang-connected individuals can go to get out of the lifestyle and be in an environment where they can transition out of that lifestyle, and just as importantly, that their rivals see them as having transitioned out. That just takes time and space. So I think that's some of the unique aspects of gang culture or the gang situation in Bermuda. So that is kind of my sort of formal aspect to front load on a whole bunch of information that may spur some thinking. Perhaps you learned some things that you hadn't heard before. So I'm going to take my seat, and we're just going to invite some questions, and without a doubt, more information will come out as a result of the conversations that we have. I'm going to invite PS Lam to come back. Thank you very much.
Good evening again. In my haste to get things going, during the introductions, I forgot to tell you who I am. I am Lieutenant Colonel Lam, the Permanent Secretary for National Security. So, we are now at the point where you get to participate, and we invite you to come forward to either mic on either side of the room to offer us your questions, your comments, your solutions, and any other remarks you might wish to make. And I remind you of the 3-minute limitation, and I invite you to come to the mics now. Please feel free to direct your questions to any one of the members at their table or in general, and I shall dictate who will answer. Yes, sir.
will find that individuals who are willing to give opportunities, because like you said earlier, a lot of people are very healthy individuals in class. So that's a challenge that we have right there. I would say challenges, such as abuse challenges as well. So we need more services funding in this mandatory, because it's easier to use these services from front end versus being to get low. And the use of videos, the use of coming every day, use of running classes every day. So I feel like more services from the front end, having sports, even paying individuals from the community who really is individuals to work with. That's a opportunity right there to get some sort of money to work with these individuals. So I would say those are some of the items that I think the government can implement, definitely involving these individuals in this conversation. Because as you grow, those these individuals are not the individuals who you're talking about. So that's as a third. And I came to our meeting last time, and it was mostly these type of individuals and not the individuals that we're discussing. So it's important that we involve them as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Yes, sir.
Opportunities in my perspective is that if you look at the school curriculum, it's 5 days. They go from English, math, science, social studies, history, geography, motherland, physical education, art and design, music, design and technology, computer information technology, and citizenship, personal skills. That's what we offer young men and women 5 days a week. Down in the university, there is a lady that has a business there called Blue Sky Flights Bermuda. They teach people how to fly a small aircraft. If that was in the curriculum, young men and young women would have a bigger view of what it is that they need to become. Horseback riding, we don't know for them. The aquarium, we probably take a school outing to each grade or each year once every 4 years. What about the person that's interested in becoming a veterinarian? If they're not involved in it enough, then how can they build or pursue a passion in it and become a decent, hard-working citizen doing something they actually love? You know, we have a limited offer that we offer young men and young women from nursery school to Bermuda college. Very limited. This generation today is not going to want to be a plumber, electrician, mason, carpenter, mechanic. They're not. They want something else. They want what they see on TV. They want to be a basketball star, a singer, a rapper, a professional runner. They want to be something else. We need to add things in this curriculum on a 5-day-a-week period, more than what we've been offering since way back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We need to offer more opportunity for these people who are really interested in, and that will help persuade them from wanting to be gangsters.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Yes, Minister.
Good evening again. I wanted to respond to Mr. Lewis before his laws. What we are doing in the ministry, but actually in government, are reaching out to youngsters. Our gang violence team is in high schools and primary schools and middle schools every day, and we stay connected to these young people. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that we have to included them in the conversation. Unfortunately, those ones that we need to contact and engage are not going to come to these kind of situations. So this is why our team is reaching out to them, going to where they are. You know, the ministry also has what we call a steering committee, which involves education, social development and seniors, national security, I think I said education, but it's about 5 different ministries, because we recognize that it's a holistic approach to reaching these young people. And I appreciate your comments about engaging the youngsters, and we strive every day. Any advice, any guidance that can be given, because it's not a singular approach, it's got to be a collective approach. So thank you for that.
Just based on your last comment, I was like to ask you this. So you say you engage people in many different ministries. You could tell us who. Let me just give you an example. For example, you say there are people in education that you're engaging. Who are these people? As you know, I'm in the schools as well. I'm in the ministry. And the one thing that I seem to be finding out is that while we have principals, the teachers themselves are not engaged. And I think that I'm not saying that we should include all teachers, but if there is a course section, even just one out of every school, we may be interested in having this discussion with you about gang violence. Because I think it's important that we look to where the problem, when we talk about the problem, it's not just one thing. It's a whole host of things. And the solution is also a whole host of things. You know, you want the public to give information. Okay, that's one thing. But then there's still a whole lot of other stuff that goes on. I had a conversation with someone today who was telling me about how they have to work 2 and 3 jobs. And they have young children. And I had to ask them, I said, well, so you're working 2 and 3 jobs. What are your children doing while you're working? You know, and so, as we know, it's a balance. It's a balance in this thing for some of the experience. And so, with these mothers who are working, my last question was to them, so where's the father? You know, and so, we have these young men who are out there, and they are going to use the word reading, and they're not even caring about whatever happens to the child. So, when we look at gang violence, it's a huge problem, and I think a lot of it has to start with education. Education of our children. I know we're dealing with 10-year-olds, but maybe we have to look at a program that goes a little bit younger than that. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Statement.
Good evening, first of all, give honor to God and the Excellency, Minister, and Commissioner. I want to piggyback on something the Minister said just now, because the Ministry are not giving props for what they're doing, because I'm one of the people in the community that they're working with to help young people. At this present time, we have 4 young people that are working under my tutelage. Also, they're going to Bermuda College 3 days a week, right? Getting their other skills together, and I train them also in appliance repair. And you believe it or not, these young men had that second chance that we were talking about. And yes, a lot of them do need a second chance because of situations that are surrounding them. But we must also understand that, it's difficult for one parent in a home that's working day and night to try to monitor all that their kids are doing. So what the Ministry of National Security has been doing is going out to not only the schools, but people like myself and giving them apprenticeship programs, As we speak now, there are grants that are getting out that for scholarship programs for these young people. And I'm proud to stand here and tell you that we've got 8 young people in this community that are on the trouble list, that are no longer on the trouble list, that are succeeding in their school programs, that are succeeding also in their educational programs, and along with compliance and peer. It's a light to me. I too have come to the second meeting here, and I too come with solutions to these problems. I'm not coming here to bash anyone or anything. It's about uplifting our young people. We have to listen to them, meet them where they are, and understand what their plights are, because they are our future for tomorrow. I don't really give up my time. My wife and I give up our home. We bring them into the home, and we have to sit and have dinner with us, talk to us, let us know what's on their mind and their hearts. Because when they gravitate to the streets, they call other people family, because that's the only one that might listen to them. So we have to be a family, like Bermuda once was. I heard a young man speak about years ago. Years ago, if I did something wrong, the neighbor gave me a cocktail. My mom didn't have no cell phone. The message I heard before I did. And some of you folks didn't understand what I'm saying. Today we have to be a family. We have to understand what these young folk are feeling and what they're thinking about. Because that's the only way we'll be able to communicate and not talk down to them. Talk to them and with them. Because it's so important. I am 71 years old. I'm not going to be around forever. But what I do have, I'm going to share with them. My knowledge, my experience, my love for this country that I was born and raised in. And I love Bermuda. I love it so much. That's why I'm going to give everything I have to give. And Your Excellency, I'm sorry. And Secretary, Your Excellency, I appreciate you for coming out and taking your time. Minister, I applaud you again for what you do in your ministry. And also Mr. B across the room. And you as well, Commissioner, because I know your job is not easy. We are not going to police our way out of this. We're going to have to get the communities to come together. Thank you.
I would like to thank Mr. Matthew for that endorsement of what we are doing in the ministry of national security. This is going to be 700. And to Mr. Gill, he talked about what are we doing in education. Our game violence team works in the schools daily. They're working in the schools daily, and I'm sure I cannot speak specifically who they have identified as educators, but they deal with educators every day. So we are there, do what we can. In our steering committee that came up out of the adoption strategy is education, because we know that education plays a pivotal role in if we are to help these young men choose a better life. In part of the adoption strategy, we have a GED program. We give grants to students that don't finish high school. So we provide the funding to help them get their education. We've sent a few young men overseas for private education. We've helped some young men get out to Bermuda College. So we recognize the plight of a lot of our youngsters. So the issue is, how do we collectively do what we got to do? The ministry, leading by itself, is definitely collaboration with other ministries, youth, social development, seniors, education, public works, and the like, so that we know that collectively we have to work. So, thanks again, Mr. Matthew and Mr. D.
Yes, ma'am.
Good night. And I like to say this, I am truly blessed to be here this evening for the reason for us coming here tonight. And good night to the Governor, His Royal Highness, of course, Minister Greeks, and the Commissioner. I have been who was the Observatory College house parent, and I was the administrative assistant in the residential care office. Under the umbrella, there was Observatory College, Reach Out Rehabilitation Community Center, Brandon Home, and Youth Development Center. I was blessed to work with social workers. And in that happening with the house parents there, with the kids who lived there, it was really, really a lesson in learning about they in these positions impact, giving them the time of day. Back in the day, and I say this all the time, when we acted out, our parents gave our nails to give us licks, right? So nowadays, as time has gone on, the generations have changed, and of course, due to the outside world, and when it's coming to Bermuda, now mind you, we are very blessed to live here for more reasons than many aspects. But the young people in today, the generations have changed in the course of time, it's the outside world, that's to be expected. But how we were brought up, we need to pass it on to the ones who are coming along. I've always said this. My mother and father were not perfect, my brothers were not perfect, but perfect enough for me. And in this way, I am trying to fulfill my purpose in life by what they instilled me and passing on to the younger generations who come, right? Now, giving them the time of day, help develop their gifts and talents. Yes, education is very important. But when you show these young people today that you care, by giving them the time, how to develop, as I said, their gifts and talents, you will see a difference. Because they're going to feel your love. And they're going to want to do these things, especially as a necessity in today's world. Bermuda, let's come together again. Bermuda is another world.
Thank you very much, my sister. Thank you very much for your comments.
How are you tonight? Thank you so much for the lenses that you've brought to the discussion this evening. Language around restoration, giving people second chances, transitioning to more restorative cultures, systemically, and us as a people. Understanding that policing is only one small part of the puzzle. That was very, very encouraging to hear off the bat. Thank you so much for all of that wonderful data that you shared, Commissioner. It's extremely important for the lens. I think we all know what the solutions are in one way or another. We've had these kinds of discussions for years. One thing I'm very, very excited about is transitioning to systemic action, really planning in ways that we've never planned before and implementing in ways that we've never implemented before. It's no secret that transitioning to systemic action is where we fall short. We're great at discussions, we're great at the ideation, we're great at understanding the issue, but transitioning to systemic action is where we fall short. Do I think we can do it? Absolutely. We just need to be really intentional about it. The last thing I want to say is we heard a lot about education tonight. That's my field, and I absolutely love being in it. And I completely agree that education has an absolutely essential role to play in addressing these issues. But I wonder if people really understand what they're asking for from educational practice systemically, but also right down in the classroom from our teachers, our school leaders, student services. When we say education needs to be doing these things, do we really understand as a people what we're asking for? That would be my first question. And then secondly, are we all willing to take part and to participate in the cultures of change that will need to take place for those things to even begin happening in education? And the final thing I'm going to say is, we all know in education right now, we're in the middle of education transformation, education reform. And I heard one of my brothers before me talking about we need to, stating that we need to, diversify the kind of curricular opportunities we have in the system. And we are doing that at the high schools. We're having these signature learning pathways. They're very cool. And I'm pretty sure one of them even involves veterinary sciences. And that I'm pretty sure that signature pathway is at Berkeley. So at the top, it's being, I'm trying to say, some very innovative things are taking place and people are trying. But I just wonder if people, when they say that, they really understand what they're asking for in terms of systemic educational practice.
Thank you very much, young man. Commissioner, do you want to weigh in now? Yeah. Given there's a lull in speakers, the commissioner wishes to make an announcement of sorts, a demonstration and presentation of sorts. You have 3 minutes, Commissioner.
Hello? Can you hear me? Right. All right, so I just wanted to let the public know about what we're going to be doing in terms of an amnesty around prohibited weapons. So currently, on our prohibited weapon list, there are 11 items on the prohibited item list. And a prohibited item is an article that you are not allowed to possess, sell, import, carry, use. You basically can't really even think about that article, right? But at the end of the day, you are simply not allowed to possess or sell that item. And we are, as a result, particularly or in response to some of the incidents that we've seen in terms of the rise in the use of bladed articles, we are going to add a further 8 items to the prohibited item list. And in advance of doing that, we want to give the public the opportunity to hand those items in. So at a number of locations around Bermuda, and there'll be some media, very clear media on this. So like photographs of the items, descriptions of the items, and media information about where it can be released. So we're going to be placing these weapon amnesty bins. It's going to be definitely at all the 3 police stations. We're looking at Gorham's and probably Warwick Camp as a start. We will make some assessment about whether there's value in expanding where the other locations to put these weapons amnesty bins. And what that's going to do is, for a period of time, and the detail will be made known and made obviously public in the media, we're going to allow people to hand in those items, drop them in the bins. They're locked, they're secure. Well, we're going to collect them on a nightly basis, but to hand them in without consequence. So that is essentially what the weapons amnesty is. Now, I'm sure you're all kind of wondering about what types of things are on the prohibited items list and what kinds of things are going to be added. Now, the names and the descriptions of these things are quite extensive, and we've got like sentences to describe them. So I'm going to just pick a couple of the items that you may know these things. So popularized in the media is something called a zombie knife, right? A zombie knife. And so you would have seen these things in maybe TV shows or the movie, but it's a knife that's probably, that long, a blade of that long that might have spikes in it. I mean, it just looks like something that no reasonable individual would carry other than to cause harm, right? But they were popularized in the movie. Brass knuckles. This is an example of something that many of us would know exactly what that means. So brass knuckles are being added to the prohibited item list. Some concealed knives. So these are knives that are going to look like regular or common items. So it might be a lighter, it could be a can of Coke, but inside or concealed within these items is a bladed article. So the intention is to make concealed knives, part of the prohibited items list. Another one would be what's called a cyclone knife. And this is basically, it looks like a spike, but it's got like a spiral kind of blade. Basically, again, none of these items are things that people would ordinarily need to have. I was going to say want to have, but let's park that part. None of these items are items that people would need, let's say, in the course of trade, in the course of business. And we are going to provide an opportunity starting next week for people to hand those items over to the police in one of these amnesty bins. And obviously, you would not be prosecuted for possessing that item, you know, on the way to the amnesty bin. People have asked, well, what if, you know, you're just driving around with it? You know, obviously the police are going to stop and engage you and make a judgment in that moment about is somebody on their way to hand an item into the amnesty bin or not. So, I mean, common sense is going to prevail in and around these. But the point, it really is to provide an opportunity for the community to hand in those items in the bins. Question, sure, ma'am. Yes, you can. No, so well, first of all, I didn't say gun, it's weapons. Well, they have in the past. Yes. So I don't have the list. In 2003 was when the last amnesty happened, and and we do get stuff. Like, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to get garbage bins full of materials, but I think for me what's really important is that when we make these things illegal, I will put my head on my pillow knowing that I've given the community the opportunity to hand them in. Is somebody bent on violent activity going to hand in? I mean, I take your point, I take the question, and I would have some of the views that you have. But in doing this amnesty, we are providing that opportunity. We're having a discourse with the community about what is safe and appropriate articles and eventually illegal articles to have. And I think that that's an important step it's one of the steps that we're taking to reduce violence and to address some of that rising trend that we're seeing around increase in bladed article use in a violent way. Absolutely. Your Excellency?
I don't know if this works. Hello?
Yeah, it's on.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, part of it, just adding to what the Commissioner said, is there is no one measure that we're going to adopt that's going to tackle all this. I mean, you've heard from the speakers. So part of this is we'll need lots of concurrent initiatives, some of which will work, some of which might not. And the important thing is this is, yes, will it, you know, as the Commissioner said, bins full of weapons? Probably not. But also, when people have had the opportunity to hand these things in and have not taken that opportunity and are then caught with them, that is going to be a relevant factor when it comes to those in charge of the police, the prosecutors and the courts taking actions in response to them, because these things are serious and they're dangerous. And it does go to, in terms of the giving everyone a fair chance to take actions in their own hands before the criminal justice system takes action for them. And I think that's all part of the discourse, as well as actually, yet again, promoting a debate about the fact that these things are on our streets, which they are, worryingly, and as well to, you know, for conversations in the home, schools, others, about bladed articles more generally. And I think that is healthy too. Thanks.
Here's someone else. Yes, ma'am?
Yes.
So, are you going to have an introduction to all of the communities, East, West, and Central, about second chances? Because this is about storytelling, and it is a second chance. It is would advocate for you to reach out to some of your partners on a kind of independent, what's the word a neutral territory, okay?
Yeah. No, thank you, Leffie.
How's that?
Yep, your point about locations, is valid. Sort of in our planning, we have thought about a number of places. There's a balance to be struck with maintaining the security of the actual bin, right? So I don't just put them anywhere, but we need to find locations that sort of strike that balance of being secure so people don't, and there are, I mean, you know, we've got locks you can't see on the back, but they'll be chained into locations, you know, so you can't just make off with it easily. But there is that balance to be struck, and I know you know my email, so if you can think of any particular locations, I'm welcome to hear some more. But just bear in mind that's the balance piece that we're trying to make sure that we get right. It would be highly embarrassing, you know, if somebody made off with the bin. Just, you know, not saying the harm would be horrendous, but it would be highly embarrassing. So that, yeah, that's the piece that we're trying to to balance.
Mr. Fox. Good evening.
Good evening. Protocol has been established. I'm looking at it from a different point of view. I spoke at the last game meeting of the first one. I'm going to speak again. Having been a correctional officer 27 years and also a sergeant at arms for about 14 years, I take the point of Ms. Mohammed here. We served as the corrections at that time to help the youngsters that was in the senior training school, and we acted like father figures. And up to today, you see a lot of the ex-inmates that we've helped and come up and have conversations with me. But there are casemates in prison out there, sitting up there doing nothing. Okay? I spoke before, I'm going to say it again. But I'm going to give you two scenarios. Because I visited prisons, Robbins Island Prison, I visited the prison down in Ireland, it's King's Money or Klinsman's Jail, where they executed, they killed the RIA, and I visited one in the States in Barbados. I'm no expert, far from it, but I have experience. And I'm saying this to you. Your casemate sitting up there doing nothing. I went up there about 7, 8 years ago. Yes, it's deteriorating. We can do all our rehabilitation and restorative justice, yes. However, once somebody gets time, my idea would be fix up casemates. All right, you took $800,000 and you put up supposed to be towards a music thing, never came off. Put that $800,000 in casemates. Might be 500. Okay, you got your plumbing, electrical. It's the main two things up there. And if you do, you got bars you can put up. You got somebody welded. Actual officers can go down and run the switchboard if you had to, or night patrol. Bring in foreign officers, nobody with affiliations with Bermudians. But if a person's got life, let them do the first 20, 25 years casemates. Those who's having problems up, if they're having problems up Westgate, which I probably think they are, send those guys casemates. No water views, looking at the walls. Let me tell you something. When I was young, I was giving my parents a little problem. My father was a big guy. He had paws. He didn't have hands. He had paws, right? Rather than he gave me a couple of slaps, just one. It shook me a bit. But he took me over to the jail cell over St. George's Police Station. Told him, locked me up there for about an hour. Ooh, that was a big difference. No mama, no daddy, no sister. terrorists came down, and guess what? Little did I think I became a prison officer.
All right, Mr. Fox, so
Hang on, Mr. I'm just
hold on,
give me
you're going
30
past your
seconds.
3 minutes.
Hang on.
Well, let me just ask you, I'm trying to get to, what are you really suggesting
My
for
point
case
is,
mates?
my point is, like I said, fix case mates up.
And make it another prison or corrections facility.
If the other alternative is you don't fix it up, make another prison, you can make it another tourist attraction. Other places, they have tourist attraction. You can take that money and use it on events, right? But fix it up and use it as a...
Thank you very much, sir.
Right, thank you.
I hear all these solutions and stuff like that going on.
Mike,
but we wait till the children is looking us dead in the yard before we start doing something. Well, I got to get them when they're young. Young, you hear me? I like I said, the old-fashioned way was the best way. And all of us, right? When I was growing up, I knew my neighbors. And they knew me. They were like my second fathers, my second mother. We took away discipline from the parents. Now, I'm not talking about abuse, it's discipline. This is what we're lacking. We're also lacking. When we had prayer in school, I went in St. George's Sac. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday was assembly. Tuesday and Thursday, our first lessons was religious studies. We took Christ out of everything and replaced it with money, profit, all of that, material stuff. But got to go back to knowing one another. Bermuda is, to me, is going in the same pathway as the Cayman Islands were back in the 70s, making it so impossible for the locals to even live here now. If you're not working 2 or 3 jobs, you're struggling. When you're working 2 or 3 jobs, who's watching your child? Social media, children on the internet, all sorts of stuff. You know, we have to start taking control of our children again. Primary school, we need more presence, we need police to be there, and just to get to know the children. Because when you have a good relationship with these children, chances are they're not going to go in the wrong path. Adults, everybody needs, it takes a community to take the whole island, not just one particular race, it takes all the races. Like I said, Bermuda is gifted, it's been blessed for a long period of time. But I'm watching it slowly but surely turn into a curse. Like I said, I drive the bus. I'm dealing with the public every day. I try my best to talk to young children, especially our young black males. And you know what they always tell me? They're tired of seeing their parents struggling. And that's a big part of it. Our prices are insane. You know, talking about having children, yes, I can see the population getting dwindling because you know why? It's too expensive to have a child. Daycare is like almost like a mortgage now. And we just keep on putting band-aids here and there. Go back to the old-fashioned way. Put back prayer back into the school and discipline. And then you have, at least these children will know their limitations. Right now, they have no limitations. They feel like the whole world is against them. Generation gaps. We've got to stop it. Go back to the old-fashioned ways.
Thank you very much, Bob. Yes, ma'am. No one else is lined up, so we'll give you a second bite of the cherry.
Yes, there was something else I meant to mention earlier. Years ago, I went to New Jersey. I was introduced to this gentleman. His name was Dr. DeLacy Davis. He had opened up a school for kids who had the potential to be gang members. Well, I have to admit, I was very impressed. I went back the next year and he had opened up a second school for kids who had the potential to be gang members, but it was a different age group. Anyway, this young lady got up and she was talking, and I said to him, "Oh my God, you're so cute." He said, "Cute? that little girl would kill you in a heartbeat. So having said that, I said, you know what? That was at a time when the gangs in Bermuda started to come into existence. And I said, you know, Dr. DeLacy Davis needs to come here to Bermuda to help to get this set up. Little did I know he had been to Bermuda before. Long story short, he needs to be brought back here, have a meeting with the Minister of National Security, the Commissioner of Police, and the governor is showing that he's very interested in being involved at another level, so to speak. And let's make this happen. We need to take our children, our young people under our umbrella, show them that we care, show them that we love them, and as a result, we will get that attention, help to develop their gifts and talents. It will make a difference. I say that from experience, and having been a leader, I'm proud to say my dad was Ernie Leader, need I say anymore. But it is time, and you know what? It's going to happen. As long as there is life, there is hope. What the mind can conceive and believe, it will achieve. We must do this, okay?
Thank you very much.
Because it's got to happen.
Good evening, everyone. A little nervous speaking here, so my words might get confuzzled. But first of all, my opinion. Our children are all over the place because as adults we are. First and foremost, I have a few points, don't knock me down. First and foremost, it starts at home. Children manipulate from the time they come out of the womb. And that's a fact. Our history books are not showing Bermuda's true history. If our children don't know where they came from, how are they going to know where they're going? We give a lot of our children false hope in a lot of situations. What are you going to do when you grow up, especially our boys? I want to be a football player, a professional football player. But how many times do we stop and talk to them and say, okay, so can you reach your contract if you become a football player? If you get injured, do you have an education to fall back on? Can you add? Can you subtract? There are so many people out there that are in professions end up bankrupt because they cannot read, they cannot write. They have no one to really advocate for them. Our parents taught us first. They taught us the meaning of education. They taught us what's important, and we're missing that block. We need to reach parents starting from preschool. We have a Bright Start program now, starting at age 3. Teaching them how to use their hands, the mobile skills, things like that. It needs to continue. Someone had mentioned about horseback riding and the other extracurricular activities. It's just not about horseback riding. It's about cleaning that stable. It's about lifting up that horse's leg and getting that hoof clean so that the shoes, I've experienced that. But what I'm saying is it's more to it. And if our parents don't expand their children's minds within the home, what else is there to do? We're kind of fighting a losing battle in a sense. I'm not trying to be negative, but what I'm saying is it has to start at home. We have teachers that are on administrative leave for children's files that have this thick since preschool, since P1. I know my time's coming to a close, but what I'm saying is we need to hit it early. We really do. So if we can reach more parents, I feel like us being here, we're preaching to the choir. How are you really going to get this message out to our schools? And don't just start with senior, start from primary.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Greetings, everyone.
Gavin.
I'm going to keep it tight because I know I've got 3 minutes. So good to see the family all here together. I really appreciate the words earlier about being family because we are all one family. My name is Gavin Smith. A lot of people see me around, but today I come in a few different hats, but I work as a leadership coach. A lot of people don't know where I actually work. I work as a leadership coach for Transitional Community Services, TCS. Check us out, tcscharity.bm, not to grandstand. A lot of people want to know where you can and how you can, or what can we do for our young men. There are options around, and I would say start with the young man in your life. If you don't know what to do with him, ask him. If you still don't know what to do, you can give someone like myself a shout, and I can point you in some directions. I know we're here for solutions, so I'm gonna bang out my list of solutions, okay?
Fire.
I remember being young and seeing a family in my daughter's class watching the toxicity leak into the classroom and being frustrated and talking to Martha Dismond about things and being like, how do we help these families, not these students, these families? And there didn't seem to be enough trusted help that was going into the families. I don't know how we can do that. I don't think it's necessarily the teacher's fault, but I know the teachers see that firsthand when they're in there. A suggestion I had in my mind was maybe a para-type program.
What type of para program?
We have paras for special needs students that maybe have learning difficulties, maybe a para for high-risk students and their families.
You already have that in your system, right?
Well, I don't see it happening with some of the young men I work with. I'm not saying it's been around for
Lots of
forever.
paras throughout your system.
For high-risk youths that we know are going to be front-page shooters. Because I'm telling you, the teachers know who they are from P1. Knife crime problem. When I've talked to the young men I work with, and I've worked with over 70 men over the last 5 years, countless more in my entire life, I work with men 18 to 34. And when I work with them, the thing I see is that they don't trust nobody. And because nobody's really giving them a break. When I see and talk to them directly about why they carry a knife, it's because they need to protect themselves. I challenge each of you to feel that alone and isolated, and how do you actually protect yourself when you can't call nobody? I don't know who you're supposed to call. I think a solution could be finding a way for young men to have a hotline number for them to call when they're having a problem. Right now, that number is TCS, so give us a shout, tcscharity.bm. All right, impact on our males through proximity to gangs and ultraviolence. Of these 70-ish men and all the other men I see, it's been not that many that's been directly caught up in the gang stuff. But what I know is that they're all actually affected. So just because you know a young man in your life that he's not caught up, he's still being affected. He's getting depressed, he's getting isolated, he's becoming more and more alone. And loneliness is the big problem for our young men. That ties into trust and relationships. Quick poll of the room. How many people think that of the 70-ish men that Gavin has worked with through TCS over the last 5 years have children? If you think over 50%, raise your hand. Over 50% of the men, of the 70-ish men that I've worked with over the last 5 years, between the ages of 18 and 34, how many of them do you think have children? Raise your hand if you think it's over 50%.
Okay, Gavin, you have to bring it in, bro.
If you think it's over 90%. Yeah, it's less than 10%. Yeah, go figure. It's wild. It's not the myth that we always make our boys and men out to be. I'll wrap it up, I'm coming in the home stretch. There are a lot of other myths out there about our young men that we don't know to be true. I had a suggestion that you inspired, Colonel Lamb, which was a regiment program. Now, as someone that's personally waged war against conscription in Bermuda, personally, and won, I also feel like there's a place for the regiment. And I feel like the place for a regiment program could actually be behind bars. We already have the established system set up where we know how the regiment works. For suitable candidates, I think it would be very appropriate and a great opportunity for a pilot program within the prisons to allow some suitable candidates to become in a regimental pilot program that allow them to get regimental type skills that can help help to fast track their actual incarceration, that could also help to give them pathways to employment and shelter upon release, because a lot of our men, when they come back to society, and I work with them directly, up west and up east, they can't figure it out how to get out and find a place.
Okay, Gavin, you have to bring this in, bro.
No, I'm bringing him. Another thing, girls first boys. Why is it that from the same household, a lot of our boys are having terrible outcomes, but our girls aren't? I think there's data there that we can look at as to figuring out why it is that our girls aren't turning to these issues, and I think we will have different suspicions and different understandings, but if we develop the same programs that we have for our girls, ad hoc and formal, we might actually find some bona fide solutions. Our girls have more people caring for them than our boys. Our women have more people caring for them than our men do.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to...
Sure. I know, I don't want to... Have the schools open up the campuses to suitable candidates to bring programs onto campus that the educational department doesn't have to pay for. I have a pilot program that I've been doing at Purvis Primary School through chickens, through basic stuff, chickens and quail, helping students learn about, where food comes from, how to care for something, teach them life skills, and how to open their heart and care. I think the horse riding.
Okay, perhaps we can have a sidebar afterwards, all right?
TCS
Thank you very much.
You can find me there. Bless us, Annie.
Thank you very much, Gavin. I think there's a young lady. Will you try? There you go. Get there.
Okay, good evening.
Good
My name is
evening.
Alyssa Stewart. I'm a bus operator. Thank you all for coming to this panel. Appreciate the panel, but it's really like a systemic issue, and it would be nice to see Parks and Rec here, the Minister of Home Affairs, everybody, because the problems that these kids are facing start at home and come out to the community. And if all of the ministers were working together to create a better Bermuda, then you wouldn't have what you have now. We can clean up our home, but we need the ministers that are in charge of creating opportunities for Bermudians to do a better job so that we can do a better job. So we're not working 3 jobs. We are able to come home to our kids. Mental health also, just a point, like I see it on the back of the buses. Everybody's pointing at mental health. Whoa, mental health needs to be addressed way more in Bermuda than it is. Teaching kids from little ages how to breathe. Meditative class, really small, easy to do, don't cost much. Anger management for little kids that are banging their heads on the floor when they could really just sit and breathe. As an adult, if you learn that from a small age, you know how to handle your emotions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Darin.
Welcome to St. George's,
Yes.
the best part of the island.
Second best.
Not just
Second
because I was
best.
born and raised here, but because it is.
Lives is the best.
I want to thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, I want to thank you, sir, for the way you have been participating in our challenge. It's really been unprecedented that we find a governor who be out on the streets where a crime has happened. I want to commend you and encourage you. I would also want to advise that you consider going forward when we have our next meeting that we seemingly have gone away from our spirituality when it comes to the way Bermudians conduct these type of meetings. We usually start off with a prayer. And clearly, the island has lost its spirituality. So I'm going to suggest to you that your next meeting, you start with a prayer initially. The solution is complicated, but yet simple to some extent, what we are facing with. It has been long been said that Bermuda has an aging population. Am I right or wrong? what has been omitted and overlooked is the fact that along with your aging population, we have a great deal of wealth that has not been explored, called upon, or even considered. Am I right or wrong? As an example, most of our teachings, we can refer to our grandparents, grandfathers who played a significant role in our growth. I'm suggesting to you that in future, we should take a look at some of our wise elders throughout the community in each parish that have been, I guess, been there and done that to a great extent. And I'm going to suggest that you want to start maybe tapping into some of those resources, if it makes sense to do so. And I want to say that I think the police are doing a stellar job under the conditions. And we're trying to encourage people to give information. First of all, the rewards are not high enough. Whatever they are, $50,000 or whatever. That's a non-starter for a person who is going to come forward with some information to implement a murderer. $50,000 might buy him a couple of dozen eggs, but he couldn't relocate with that. So my suggestion is that you want to take a look at that. Those funds don't have to be provided by government, because we have enough people in the community, some of our corporate partners, that would be glad to participate in that sort of activity. I see you got a weapon embassy, but let me turn over my weapon right now. I'll be the first one to hand it in. We'll just put it in the box here. Yeah? Anyway, that's all I wanted to interject. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darrell. We're approaching 8 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen, so we have time for one or two more speakers.
Hello. Evening, everyone.
Good evening,
I'm
sweetheart.
Kara. I'm 19, probably one of the youngest people here. I want to be a teacher. I've worked with younger kids. I can see, like someone said earlier, you can see it before it comes up. And a lot of parents enable it, or children do manipulate parents, and I've seen it with my own eyes. Also, the prices, rent, just everything is really expensive. There's a lot of kids who are my age who want to go to college, but they have to help their families, so they can't afford to go to college. I don't mind doing online, but I know there's a lot of people who want to go out and experience the world, and they can't because they have to help support their families. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All the best in your pursuits to become a teacher, sweetheart. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Yes, Ms. Ming.
Thank you for allowing me this time to speak. And thank you, gentlemen, for bringing this community conversation out here, because I think it's important that we have it. I haven't sat in a space before. I firmly believe that when we look to the police for solutions, and Mr. Commissioner Simons would know my thoughts on this, is that the police are at the end of this journey. Right? When we call the police for our young people, we have to engage them. That's the end of the journey. Okay? So I don't not appreciate what the police bring to the table, but what we need to do is start it at the beginning of this journey. Our solutions have to be more preventative, more proactive, more like, we want to, at the age of 16, we're late to this game. Okay, we're late. We are so late that we're likely not even to be able to school and win. And so the things that we need to look at as a community are at the ages of 4, at the ages of 5, at the ages of 6 even. Because I remember when I sat in this space one time and I had to speak, and I said that at the age of 8, we are now seeing affiliations to gangs. and things that young people are doing. So getting them at 16 and 17, and when the police are involved, is way too late. And so our conversations need to start at what does it look like earlier. And it doesn't just involve one ministry. Listen, it involves sport, it's social development, it's legal, it's education. There are so many interconnectivity that we see within the ministries, and they all need to be engaged. So I applaud my minister for sitting up here. But you know what? Every minister's got to sit there, because each and every one of them have some solution in this problem. And like I said, it's not about the police getting involved at the end. And don't get me wrong, Mr. Commissioner Simons, I appreciate the Bermuda Police Service. But I know that the preventative and being proactive is far more important than trying to engage at 16 and 17 years old.
Thank you very much. Let me, we're talking about police in our communities. Let me just ask this question. We're all adults here. Who used to police our neighborhoods when we were growing up? Absolutely. In my world, it was my great-grandfather and his brother Gilbert, Sam Painter, Cowboy Hall, Harold Millett. Those people policed our neighborhoods, and our mamas and our grannies. Called what cops? Called the cops to save me from my mama and my old man and my grandfather. What? No, we're supposed to police our neighborhoods. We talk about the old days, we talk about the village. Well, let's stop talking about the village and do the village and look out for each other's children before they get 16. Look out for everybody else's child. While the little termites, and as they grow up, take an interest in everybody else's child. Let's start doing the village thing. So we don't need the police. We police our own neighborhoods. And we need men and women of courage to take hold by somebody else's child if they're going astray. And we have to allow our neighbors to do likewise if we're going to make any inroads on this problem. Yes, ma'am. Here endeth today's lesson. Your turn.
Good evening, all. I contemplated about getting up and asking this question, and only got up because MP Mean got up and stated what she did, but I have a very simple question. Have we identified how all the prohibited and illegal items are entering our shores? We are literally in the middle of nowhere. Do we need more manpower? Do we need the ports to be strengthened further? That is the beginning of the issue. We wouldn't need an amnesty if the items weren't heard to begin with. So identifying after the fact that persons have issues, if they didn't have any of these items to kind of attract them to these behaviors, we wouldn't be sitting here today trying to find solutions. So I automatically think being security trained is looking at the ports of entry. And is that something that we have seriously considered? That's it.
Thank you very much. Do you want to speak to that?
So, in terms of how items come into Bermuda, basically anywhere and any way where people and goods come into Bermuda is how these articles come in. I suspect that many of the prohibited items that are part of the list are going to be items that have come in probably to the airport in people. Community is traditionally been focused on them. I appreciate the
Good evening. I just have one question. The guys and the young men and young ladies that sit off down there and invite them to meetings like this so that we can get their input as to how they feel. Because without knowing how they feel, we're just beating a dead horse. So just a solution. Go in. They're not going to.
Firearm, it will probably be a period of incarceration, or it will be a period of incarceration for a bladed article.
How long would a person do time for a firearms?
It could be 7, 10, 12, 14. Is it just simple possession, or is it in connection?
Is a non-tolerance for these types of offenses. They take it to a level that you and your grandmother's grandmother will never ever even think about doing that. And because that Bermuda side of it, it's so light, you don't even hurt the feelings. It again, because everybody investigate is the bread.